Hi students! Today we are doing one of my absolute favorite things to do in math. We are solving two-step equations. Now some of you may not even know that what we've been doing in the past have been called one-step equations, like 3x equals 18 is a one-step equation because all we needed to do is divide by 3 to both sides to figure out what x is. So we would divide by 3, divide by 3, and that would give us, or divide by 3 on both sides, I should say. Get there. And divide by 3 over here. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, so it's saying that 1x equals, what's 18 divided by 3 is 6. That's one step that takes us to get to our final answer, which is x equals 6. But now we're going to be looking at what it looks like when we have an equation with two steps. So before we get into that, I want you to remember the order of operations that we spent a lot of time looking at, and remember how multiplication and division are grouped together and how addition and subtraction are grouped together. And this is really important before we move on to this lesson, because as we work on these problems, we don't really have to worry about these guys right now, so I'm just going to delete them. But as we worry about multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction, you need to remember that we do two-step equations. We solve them backwards. So that's why I put the little arrow going backwards. And you'll see what I mean in just a little bit. But basically, we're going to work with the addition and subtraction first, and then we'll be working with multiplication and division. And this is because we're undoing a problem, and when we're undoing something, we're typically working backwards. So undo is a key word here. I'm actually going to put it in quotes because I'm going to say it a lot. All right, and then just as a quick refresher, remember that the inverse operation is the opposite of, not opposite with a V, opposite of a, it depends on what sign it is. We've worked so far with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and this is my sign for division and division. So it just depends on which inverse operation we're taking. But the opposite of addition is subtraction, the opposite of multiplication is division, and vice versa. All right, so that's just your quick refresher before we jump in. So let's go. This is a really fun concept that you use for the rest of math. So I want to make sure that you learn it well. So a two-step equation. You've got 2x plus 1 equals 9. All right, so when you have 2x plus 1 equals 9, you might be able to visualize and see what x equals, but we want to make sure that we do the steps. So first we need to recognize which kinds of operations we have in here. Well, right here we have multiplication, and right here we have an addition operation. So remember I told you we need to work backwards. We need to deal with the addition and subtraction first. So that would be this plus 1 right here. So just like we did when it was a one-step equation, the opposite of adding 1 is subtracting 1. And whatever we do to one side of the equation, we have to do to the other side of the equation. So if you take this, nope, don't want to do that. There we go. So if you do a positive 1 minus 1, that gives us 0. So you can just picture those going away. And then a 9 take away 1 is 8. And then this is the only part that people get a little confused on. Remember to bring this whole section, this 2x, all the way down to your new line, which is right here. So I'm going to transfer it now. 2x, a positive 1 minus 1 is 0. We got rid of that. So then we just need to bring down our equal sign right here. Equals, and then 9 take away 1 is just 8. So now we have 2x equals 8. Now this is what you were solving last week. This is a one-step equation because we just eliminated one of those other steps by solving up there. So now we have 2x equals 8. Well, we just divide both sides by 2 and divide over here also. And what is 8 divided by 2? Think of it in your brain if you don't already know. You should get that x equals 4. Now, the awesome thing about these equations, just like any other equation you are working with, you can always take your answer and plug it back into this first problem to see if you got it right. So I'm going to do it right here. And I'm going to do 2 times 4, remember parentheses means multiply, plus 1 equals 9. And you can either do this in your head or solve it out. 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 plus 1 is 9. And yes, that does work. So I'll do my little happy face because that worked. Okay, so remember when we look back at this, we just undid. We undid the plus 1 and we did a subtract 1, and then we undid the multiplication and we got x equals 4. So let's do another one. Let's do 5x minus 2 equals 13. All right, so on this one, again, let's look to see what we've got. We have multiplication, and then we have subtraction, and all of it equals 13. So we have to undo. Let's undo the addition and subtraction first. So here I've got subtraction. So the opposite of a subtracting 2 is an add 2 or plus 2. And then whatever I do to one side, I have to keep the equations balanced, so I have to do it to the other side. All right, so 5x minus 2, and then you have a plus 2. Those go away. 13 plus 2 on that side gives us 15. So now we have 5x equals 15. And notice that I brought down this 5x. I kept it all as one piece, and I brought it right down because I haven't dealt with this step yet. I only dealt with this subtraction right here. And then 13 plus 2 is 15, and I carried that down right here. Now I have a one-step equation, 5x equals 15. So divide by 5 to both sides. Draw my dividing lines. So divide by 5 and divide by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. So 1x, or just x, would be brought down next. X equals 15 divided by 5. Well, 15 divided by 5 is in fact 3. So x equals 3. And then, just like we did before, we can go back up here and plug it in to check our work. So 5 times 3 minus 2 equals 13. Well, 5 times 3 is 15, and 15 minus 2 is 13. So we get another smiley face right there. And if you ever check your work and it doesn't work, go back and see if you made some sort of small mistake. Maybe you forgot to add this 2 to this side and you got 5x equals 13, and that's where you did a mistake. Your answer will not work unless you have the right answer, so make sure you go back and check your work on these types of problems. All right, our next concept that we need to look at is equations with negative coefficients. Now don't get scared. A negative is not something to be afraid about. Let's look and add an example. So I have 4 minus x equals 10. So just like before, I still need to undo my addition and subtraction first. Well, I don't have addition. I do have a negative sign right here, but can I add x to get to this side? It won't really help me because remember, just like in last week, our goal is to isolate the variable. So I'm trying to get x by itself. So I should just be able to get this 4 to this side to figure out what x is. So remember, when there's not a sign in front of the 4 or in front of the number, that automatically means that it's a positive sign. So if you look at this as a positive 4 or a plus 4, you do indeed have addition right here. So we need to get this 4 over to the other side first by subtracting 4 from each side. Oops, don't want to do that. So subtract 4 from each side. A positive 4 minus 4 makes that 4 go away, and then we do 10 take away 4 on this side. So then we have positive 4 plus negative 4 goes away. We have this whole part right here that needs to be brought down. So we have a negative x equals, and what's 10 take away 4? Well, that's just 6. Now, is this our final answer? I want x to be by itself, but is it by itself right now? It's not, because it has a negative right here in front of it. So we want to know what x equals. We don't want to know what negative x equals. So how do we get this negative to go away? Well, remember that if I don't have a number in front of this x, it's like I have an imaginary 1 in front of the x. So if I have that 1 there, now this looks like what? Well, it just looks like a multiplication problem. It's -1 times x. So now if I remember that I have that 1 there, I can just divide both sides by -1. So I'm going to put my division signs on both sides of my problem, because whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Divide by -1, and then divide by -1. Now, is x by itself? A -1 divided by a -1 is just a 1. So that's a positive x by itself. X equals, well, 6 divided by -1. Well, a positive number divided by a negative number is a negative number. So 6 divided by -1 is -6. Now check it out. Do I have a positive x over here? Yes. Oh, but I just have a -6 on this side, and that's okay. I'm allowed to have negative answers for these kinds of equations. So x equals -6 is my answer. And just like always, I can plug it back in to check my work. I'll do that right here. I have a +4 minus, in parentheses, a -6 equals 10. Oops, not 1, 10. And then a negative or a subtraction sign and a negative go together to make that a positive. So that would look like this. It would be 4 plus 6 equals 10. And that is true, so you get a smiley face. All right, so I checked my work, I isolated my variable, and I am all set. That is an example of an equation with negative coefficients. We will go over these in class because this is the only one that's a little bit tricky. The last thing you need to remember for this lesson and for your homework is that you need to always, always, always combine like terms before solving. So if you think back to the beads that we were using in class on Friday, we had a bunch of like terms that we needed to combine before we could solve them. So an example would be m minus, oh, I want a little m minus 5m plus 3 equals 47. So if you ever notice that you have some of the same like terms, you have to combine those before you solve. You have to, so that way you can get the correct answer. So 1m, take away 5m. Remember, if there's no number, it's just like there's an invisible 1. So 1m minus 5m is a -4m. Add 3 and you will get 47. Plus 3 is 47. All right, so now what? We have to undo the addition and subtraction first. So here's a plus 3 we need to get rid of. So we need to subtract 3 to both sides because we keep our equations equals. And subtract 3. So then we have a -4m. Remember to keep all the letters and numbers and negatives and positives together. -4m equals, well, 47 take away 3 is 44. So then here we have a -4 times m. So we need to divide by what? Well, if you said we need to divide by -4, you're correct. Divide by -4 on both sides. Oh, I forget to write that line on the other side. On both sides. And then -4 divided by -4 is +1 because a negative, oops, I'm jumping down a page. That's okay. A negative divided by a negative is positive. So then you'll have as your final answer m equals, well, 44 divided by -4, well, positive divided by a negative is a negative. So 44 divided by -4 is -11. Okay, so here's your final answer for that. Now, let me tell you, I have changed the order that we're doing this, and there is no longer going to be a quiz at the end of the video. We will always be taking our quizzes in class from here on out for the rest of this chapter at least. And that's all you need to know for tonight, and I will see you guys in class tomorrow for lots of practice on these because I think they're super fun. All right, so have a good day, and I'll see you very soon.